to out abuse. It was just absolutely horrific. And he goes, if I can spare one kid's life from having to live this kind of then it'll be worth it.
Axl continued to openly talk about his past.
Because it might not have happened to you, but it might have happened to the 2 or 3 people that are standing around you who got some family life that's gonna come back to haunt them when they hit about the age of 25. And then you gotta find your way, trying to climb your way out of what you thought was your life, but looks more in your head like a car wreck that no one told you about. I can't come up here and go, yeah, I'm bad, I'm rock and roll, we're doing this rock and roll thing. If my life is falling apart, I can't fake it no more.
And I think it was really cathartic for him to be able to get that out there and say, you know what, I'm not the only person that's gone through an experience like this.
After facing up to his childhood and its possible role in his erratic and destructive behavior, Axl continues on a quest to heal himself.
Axl worked on his mental health. He had a number of experts working with him, and he knew he wanted to keep his together.
You know, I actually went with Axl in his car for like 4 days and did some of the sessions. There's a little bit of chanting, humming, sitting in a mud bath for half a day, massage, I mean, you know, and spiritual sort of, you know, guidance of a higher power.
But Axl's newfound spirituality doesn't seem to make him any less unpredictable.
When you get to the height of the Use Your Illusion tour, he then has his own guru, a lady called Sharon Maynard, whose nickname on the tour was Yoda. It's crystals, it's auras. If there's a cancelled show, Axl goes to Yoda and has to get her approval over the plans. Now suddenly we can't play Texas because the sun is in the wrong section of the sky, and Yoda has said there's bad energy, and Axl, you mustn't leave the room that day.
He was interested in therapy. He was interested in how his mind worked and improving it. He was also interested in not carrying the pain around that he had carried from his childhood.
But despite Axl surrounding himself with gurus and therapists, his need for control continues to destroy everything and everyone around him. Axl Rose is one of the most successful rock stars of all time. But his journey to the top has been littered with heartache and destruction. Axl now seeks to control every other aspect of his life, and that includes taking ownership of the band. July 5th, 1993, Estadio Olympic, Barcelona, Spain. Guns N' Roses is touring their second album, Use Your Illusion. Just before they're set to perform in front of a 40,000-strong audience, Axl makes a demand.
Axl decides to convince Slash and Duff to sign ownership of the name of the band, so the brand of the band, over to him.
Duff and Slash, who were inebriated the entire Use Your Illusion tour, Axl calls me to his room in Barcelona, Spain, and says, if they don't sign Slash and Duff, the name Guns N' Roses back to me, I'm not going on stage, and somebody's going to die because there's going to be a riot.
I mean, it got done.
Axl now has total control over Guns N' Roses. And just over 2 years later, Axl would take his power over the band to the extreme. He announced that he was leaving the band and starting up his own, taking the name with him.
Part of the legal strategy on Axl's part was, if I dissolve the partnership by removing myself and then starting it again as a fresh entity, because he had the ownership of the name, he was entitled to do such. So it gave him a little bit more creative control, which is exactly what he was trying to do. I would say probably 100% of it had to do with control.
Duff and Slash were allowed to join him, but they were relegated to employees rather than band members. It led to a huge fallout.
But it obviously pushed Slash further away. And was the causation, I think, in the long run for Slash just saying, I'm out.
Slash and Axl had always been the yin and yang of the band, but now their relationship is nearly at the breaking point.
Axl wanted to change the musical direction of the band. I think that when Axl rejected Slash's songs, I think that Axl hurt Slash's feelings. There was still a little bit of animosity over the drug use. So I think that all those things sort of built up.
Axl starts to try and control everything, even his past relationships. He sues ex-girlfriend Stephanie Seymour over an engagement ring. She then countersues him for abuse and other transgressions.
It's really hard when you're going into the courts. I mean, she was claiming, violence and that he was physically violent with her.
She countersued and said that he'd beaten her up, and she brought a case against him, during which she subpoenaed Erin Everly to come and give evidence against Axl and say that he beat her up as well.
After Erin is asked to testify against Axl in Stephanie's trial, she files her own case against her ex-husband. She sues him for assault and sexual battery.
And the both of them were, claiming domestic violence against him.
Culminating in this bizarre scenario where Axl decides that Erin and Stephanie have been sisters in a former life, and that they are contriving to gang up on him and destroy him between them.
Axl eventually settles both cases out of court, but the public exposure of his private life feels like a loss of control.
The court cases with Stephanie were really difficult for Axl because he just wanted to be exonerated. A lot of depression, but less depression than frustration, I think.
By the time the Use Your Illusion tour ends, Axl stops and takes stock.
At the end of the Use Your Illusion run, which was probably one of the most successful tours in history at that time, and the longest tour a band had ever done in history. I mean, there was just complete exhaustion. We had a 150-person family that had dealt with 4 or 5 riots, that had dealt with drug overdoses, that had dealt with potential deaths.
To make up for his seemingly bad behavior, Axl regularly rewards those who stick by him.
He's the most generous person, and he wanted to take care of his people. That, it ended with him giving all his crew a bunch of money. That's how it ended, and saying thank you, and thank you for giving 2.5 years of your lives to our band. And then he threw a big Halloween party for everybody that year, which was awesome, and everybody came to his house, and he created this amazing fantasy land at his house.
And all the kind of people that worked for him were encouraged to bring their wives or girlfriends and children. It was all about the kids.
Axl gave an insight into these parties during an interview with Jimmy Kimmel.
We have these Halloween parties, and I decided let's have a Halloween tree. So we did the tree, put the presents, families come with their little kids, and the little kids stand there. And then I would go, "Wow, you don't have a Halloween tree?" Goes, "No." And then I would give them a present. And then their parents would call me for about 3 months. "You son of a..."
The party is a distraction from the disintegration of the band. Slash, who was once always by Axl's side, has been playing with other artists. But when he chooses to play with Michael Jackson, it's a step too far for Axl.
Slash came to my room to tell me he was going to perform with Michael Jackson.
Axl fully believed that Michael Jackson was a child molester.
I said, your singer, your business partner, literally just exposed to everybody in the world that he was molested by his father. When Slash decided to play with Michael Jackson, to me, that was the beginning of the end.
Shortly after, Slash quits the band.
This was devastating to Axl because this was his right-hand man. This was his wingman, throwing all his toys out the pram and saying, "Right, I've had enough."
The train had derailed at that point.
I mean, Slash was basically the musical director of the whole band, and so when he's gone, who's going to direct the music?
Alone and in charge of Guns N' Roses, Axl finally has what he wants. But the dark reality of his actions start to dawn.
he definitely has some kind of breakdown. You've got to wonder if it precipitated this long period where he becomes virtually a recluse. He was so distressed about not just Stephanie, but the way the band had crumbled around him, how his whole life was unraveling, and he didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I used to get these phone calls, 2, 3 in the morning, crying, and Dougie's gonna kill himself and I don't know what to do.
His manager, Doug Goldstein at the time, told me he'd have to go over to Axl's and he'd find him lying in bed with a gun in his mouth.
Yeah, sometimes he'd be laying there and with a gun in his mouth. And this is the man that he's my best friend and I love him. And I know that if I don't think quick and say the right thing, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to pull it off.
At this point in Axl's life, everything he had built had really come crumbling down. Whether it was dreams of having a family or the band, he was suicidal at this point.
With Axl in such a dark place, Duff McKagan, the bassist and the last standing original member of Guns N' Roses, also throws in the towel.
The worst part of that for Axl would have been the recognition that he'd lost control. People are leaving him, one after the other. The people on who he relies the most are walking away.
After the breakup of the original band, a deafening silence descends.
You know, it can be pretty daunting to sort of look at your life and then reflect back on, you know, you're playing stadiums, you had like the biggest rock and roll band in the world, but what is Guns N' Roses?
Axl is lost and alone.
You know, he likes to destroy something till it's almost completely irretrievably lost and damaged forever.
But help comes in an unexpected form. It's 1997, and Axl Rose's life is spinning out of control. All of the original band members have left Guns N' Roses. And behind closed doors, the increasingly reclusive artist is getting more and more erratic.
He literally fades from view. Nobody knows what's happened to him. He's 1 minute it's Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, frontman, everything to play for. Next minute it's all over. And he vanishes. Nobody knows what's happened to Axl.
Everybody left and he's standing there naked and alone.
Axl is trying to record a new Guns N' Roses album, Chinese Democracy, but it'll take him a total of 14 years to complete.
All you've got is the ghost of Guns N' Roses. You've got Axl. It's the last man standing, and a lot of session guys.
All gonna be on his shoulders. There's no longer a band to support him anymore and say, oh, Slash is playing great, or now it's all on Axl Rose. And I think that was really the holdup, more than anything else.
Axl employs a new set of musicians, including a guitarist named Buckethead.
So I worked on Chinese Democracy for about a year, and Buckethead was the guitar player, and you know, he insisted on building a chicken coop to be inspired to play better recordings.
Axl called me and said, well, I got him. He's gonna play with us. He wants me to have built a chicken coop in the studio for him to play his leads in. I said, I'd been through so much. I was like, yeah, okay, we'll build a chicken coop. I mean, it's pretty bad when your new normal becomes a chicken coop.
But he was also using porn as inspiration. So he had a monitor in there and it was running hardcore porn 24/7 when he was recording. Axl came to the studio one night and he went in the coop to talk to Bucket, and he looked up and he saw this hardcore, like really horrific porn. And Axl looks at him and he goes, we're gonna have to erase all that, because he goes, I believe that this record, it's an extension of my soul, and people will feel that the guitar parts on this record were inspired by pornography, and I can't allow that to happen. So he instructed us to erase every single thing that Buckethead had recorded since he got into the chicken coop. Bucket was so pissed off he left, and it took me a month to find him.
A whole 6 months worth of work has to be re-recorded.
That's why the record took so long. I mean, the New York Times reported it on the front page of their Sunday business section as the most expensive record ever recorded.
Other than time spent in the studio, Axl keeps out of the limelight at home in Malibu. Especially now he has a reliable companion, Elizabeth Beta Labias, a divorced mother from Brazil with 3 grown-up children.
Betta's been a big help with everything behind the scenes.
Axl met Beta when she was working as Stephanie Seymour's housekeeper and her son Dylan's nanny. Now she looks after Axl, taking on roles from everything from housekeeper to his manager.
She sort of became like sort of a mother figure, you know, and someone who protected him in ways that his own mom never protected him.
Beta's presence in his life seems to finally give Axl the stability he's always been looking for.
There's a connection, and I think you only got to go back to his disastrous childhood, his disastrous relationships with women, his disastrous relationships with every band member he's ever had, his disastrous relationship with his own fans, with himself, to go, interesting, this older caregiver now occupies an absolute central place in his psyche.
Through Beta, Axl also acquires a surrogate family.
One of her sons is de facto one of his managers, Fernando. Vanessa, his sister, that's another important part. They're connected through this deep, profound requirement Axl has for something to complete the picture for him, that he feels safe.
It helps everything, and plus they're a big family, you know, and I like the family environment, and it helps keep things kind of insular.
Mm-hmm. And the two of them are now interlinked. The families are interlinked, and anybody wants to talk to Axl, they better get on with Beta.
Axl attributed his new calmer self to his custodians. At Rock in Rio 3, he called Beta onto the stage.
I would like to say,
Eu gostaria de dizer,
without the love
com todo o amor
and support
e apoio
of one person above all others,
de uma pessoa,
I would not be here today.
eu não estaria aqui hoje.
He's got better there translating for him, and he starts to eulogize about this woman. She's translating away and only realizes latterly that he's talking about her, which must have been some moment.
She has been a mother to me,
Eu tenho sido uma mãe para ele,
my manager,
minha gerente.
my other assistants. I thank her,
Eu agradeço a ela.
and I thank all of you for her.
Eu agradeço a todos vocês por ela.
She gave everything to him, and I think there's a different Axl Rose middle and end of his story without Beta.